Welcome back to another Hex Proof Stitchery tutorial. This time we are going to be finishing. I have the pattern that is going to be released to my kit. If you have another small piece like this, feel free to follow along or save this for later, as it may still work for you with smaller finishes. So after we have washed and dried our finished piece, we are going to iron it into a smooth, crisp finish. I recommend starting out on the back side and using a clean towel between the fabric and your iron. I only use this little iron for my finishes, and it seems to do just fine. I also have a regular iron, so you don't need this steamer. You can use a regular iron that you have on hand. This might have been a little bit of a thick towel, but that's okay. We're going to get through this together. This is going to be a adapt and overcome type of video, because it's very likely that this may not work, and we have to just kind of go with the flow. But that's all right. It's not the end of the world. We will figure it out. Okay, so because I know that this has not been used on anything else and there's no scorching marks on it or anything like that, I am comfortable using it on my fabric. My towel was a little thick. I do not recommend using steam. Leave it on a dry iron or whatever setting doesn't produce any steam for your equipment. But we're going to try and get all the little wrinkles out. And you can hold it down a little longer. It really depends on how crisp you want your fabric, because this is going to be a very thin finish. I want this as flat and crisp as possible. I want no wrinkles, no nonsense, nothing like that. Okay, set this over here. Now we're gonna flip it right side, and you can see where I was measuring earlier, because this is going to be a very tight fit. So let me set this here. We're gonna hope that when I'm not using the edge of the towel, it will go through faster. I always like to set the vibes. I'm getting ready to do this, and unfortunately, the vibes came with YouTube ads. No offense, YouTube. Now, sometimes you may find if you iron these like this, it'll take on some towel pattern, but generally it's not going to stick there. So like I said, I have no scorch marks. I am very comfortable. I've used this on the front of my patterns before, and it's fine because we're also going to trim this down. We especially want the center where we've finished all of our stitches to be as flat as possible as well. Okay. So one more time, I'm going to go over the back. I'm going to try and smooth these out as much as possible. I probably tend to go a little overboard because I like my end result very, very smooth. And as I said, we want this one as smooth as possible because not only is it going to be a tight finish, it's going to be a tight fit. So fingers crossed. Okay. I won't bore you with, well, I guess I am going to bore you with more ironing, but right now. So we have ironed our piece. We are satisfied with how smooth and crisp it is. And now we are going to take our 6x6 piece of interfacing and see if I can show you. There's some light beading on this. This is a lightweight fusible interface. For my kits, it does come with it. If you buy these on your own, it's very inexpensive. You're going to put the rough pearly part down, shiny part down. What this is going to do, it's going to give some support to your finished piece. And it's also going to seal those stitches in there so they are not going anywhere. Now this is a heat bond. So we're going to get our handy dandy iron back out. And we're going to go right back over it. And you'll see that my red pen marks right here are disappearing, because those were friction pens that I used to measure, and they come out with heat. You still want to be very careful because sometimes they can come back. I haven't had this experience yet, but just in case. Okay. So, and I like to, again, I want to make sure this is sealed on here good and tight. Baby is not coming off. And get those edges very, very good. Which honestly, in this particular instance, doesn't matter as much because we are trimming a lot of this down. So we're just going to make sure to hold it over the actual stitch part. And make sure that all of those, the whole area around it is nice and fused together. That is, we'll give it one go over the top. Okay, and we'll flip it back over. This is gonna go off to the side. We can unplug that because unless we make some mistakes, which is entirely plausible and a-okay, we're gonna move on. So now here is kind of a tricky part, is cutting this down to where it needs to be. So you are going to need, now if you got the kit from me, you can use your backing card, which is absolutely what it's for. And just kind of Get that as centered as possible. And you can kind of fold around it. What we're actually gonna do right here is we're gonna give ourselves a little bit of room with this, which this is the sleeve that it also comes with that you will be inserting your final piece in. So all we want to do with this part is make sure that we're centered, we're straight, we give ourselves some guidelines for cutting. And the nice thing about this is that the clear sleeve is very helpful for that. Especially because with some of the design features on this card, you are able to smudge and it may get on your fingers, and you don't want that on your fabric. So, and I do recommend keeping your hands clean and as dry as possible during this, because you don't want, like I said, you don't want smudging, you don't want dirt marks, anything like that. So this is pretty good. Now we are pretty straight, pretty even. Okay, now we can take our little template and we can put this bad boy right here. I know my fingers are dirty. But I promise that I did wash them. So we're gonna pull up those edges a little more, give a nice crease, and we're gonna mark it. I got these at a Daiso shop. You can order them online. Heat erasable. Perfect for these little projects. And we're gonna mark just under there. Because you're gonna trim pretty dang close on this line, if not right on this bad boy. So you see our lines here are very, very close. Where we need to be. Well, to the edge of our fabric as well. Like, it is a tight margin, so there's not a whole lot of room for error. Okay. So like I said, we're going to give ourselves nice tight lines. Oops, because that's where we're going to be cutting. We want those cut lines as even and as pristine as possible. Okay. So, see how that has given us our little square to work with? And if you want to, you can keep that in there, and you can just kind of like, hey, am I really where I'm supposed to be? We're gonna start with one edge at a time, and it's gonna be okay. I think this is like the part where a lot of new stitchers especially will get a little nervous because cutting is scary. But just like you figure out that you can't count when you're a cross stitcher, cutting's not that scary and you can always work it out. So you can use regular scissors. You can use a rotary cutter, whatever you have on hand. I would just make sure that they're nice and sharp. Like, don't use scissors that you've been cutting a bunch of cardstock on. Don't recommend that. Okay. So these need to be just under 3.5 inches. So we're just gonna do a little tiny measurement. And gotta get out of my own way first. Okay, we are right where we want to be. And you can do it this way too. You don't have to use a template. Sometimes that's just easier. This is just about where we want to be. So we're gonna take this one. I like to line these up to make sure I'm not doing anything crazy. I line it up to the edge of the table. I line this up with my edge. I line this up. And you see how these lines line up here? My lines line up there. Excellent. And you're gonna press, and boom. I like to keep these for practice, especially if you have a sewing machine. Great for stitching on your lines. Okay, and so we're a little off. That's all right. We're gonna give ourselves a little margin for error. Just a scooch. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing. Make sure our lines are straight. And do not do what I did and put your finger like this when you're pressing down. You will cut your finger. It is unpleasant. Always keep it like this or keep your finger back here. Just for your own personal safety while stitching. Okay. Make these are nice and straight. These are nice and straight. Safety first. Put our pieces off to the side. And last section. Now I do really like these because you can get a very close trim on them. If it just makes you more comfortable because you've never used them before, go ahead and use your scissors. It's okay because we're also going to seal these edges. So one more line up. The bottom's aligned. Sides are aligned. Oh. Okay, we are back. I just did a little trimming up of these edges here. Now, it is all pressed and pretty, and looks like it's sealed down pretty good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give it one more pass just to be safe. Make it extra, 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 extra sealed and flat. Spend some good time on these edges. I don't recommend ironing on these. They will warp. I learned that the hard way. So I want to make sure that these are now also as secure as possible. And everything looks as even as possible. So now comes the tricky part. We need dry, steady hands. So I'm gonna keep this cloth right here because I get nervous when I'm finishing. Oh, that sounds inappropriate, I'm sorry. This can be a anxiety-ridden process, let's put it that way. Because you only can make so many mistakes. Now, if you ordered a kit, my husband is probably gonna come in here, then what you're going to do is you are going to take, we're gonna take this little piece of fabric, and you can use the dropper and kind of brush along these edges here, because this is archival glue. It's not gonna go anywhere. It's not gonna yellow or anything like that. I'm gonna take the little brush that's provided, and I'm just gonna go ahead and very lightly coat these edges. Right here. Just dab right along there. It's a little extra protection that your edges don't come undone. And you don't need a lot. Literally, if I could talk, just dabbing these. Just a thin line. We're gonna turn it around and do the same on all 4 edges. If you run into any snags, try and brush them away from the front of the fabric. This should keep any frays from making themselves a menace. And we're gonna go ahead. They're not my children, those are the neighbor's children. They are not in danger or hurt. Unfortunately, my craft room is right next to the street, so sounds of Christmas joy. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit more. Okay, we are back again to finish this. You can see here that there's a little gap there, so what I'm going to do is redip this. Just kind of do this little tacky. Especially right over here. We're gonna tacky the edges. Ooh. Helps if I actually show you what I'm doing. Go figure. There we go. Okay, and that, this is our last edge. We can go over it one more time. It's not gonna hurt. Like I said, this is archival glue. This is not Elmer's glue or anything like that. So it is not supposed to yellow or affect the pH over time or anything like that. And this is also included in the kit if you are stitching this piece. If you are not, it's just a nice thing to have on hand. We're gonna go back over the top one more time. Like I said, I'm a very big just in case person, so we're gonna, oops, that's a bit much. You don't need that much. Just on this edge, make sure these seal. Okay. Now this doesn't take much to dry, it doesn't seem, so I'm gonna go rinse this off so that way my precision application wand isn't getting all crusty and gross, because the next step is to now go over all of this and attach the final backing piece. Or, well, we're gonna go over this. So you wanna make sure you can see the top of our stitches, the bottom of our stitches. We want this all to line up. And once we have glued it, it's sealed down, it has dried, everything is fantastic, then we will trim those edges and put it in, which will be a tomorrow problem, but it will be stitched together in this video so you can see it. Okay, so now that the edges are basically dry, you can do one of two things. Well, you can do two things. Do lots of things. You can use your little dropper to drop some on here and brush it, or you can drop it on the cardstock, brush it very quickly on the cardstock, and then center. So those are your two choices. And so see how I have rounded here? I can cut those down and trim these edges after it's supremely dry. I can leave it alone, doesn't matter. This was an aesthetic attempt. We could always see if this matches up as better. Does match up quite a bit better on the square. However, is that going to interfere with us inputting the card? It should not. So, if you want your edges rounded, I used a 10 millimeter round on these corners. If you want to leave them square, you can leave them square. For the intents and purposes of this, we're going to use my rounded edges and I will trim these. Which, yes, will probably mean that I need to retack the edges just for safety. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that this is, our piece is right side up, this is right side up, and that we're not gonna smush it around a lot because the ink may or may not ever set. We're gonna find out. Your guess is as good as mine. So the dropper is a little difficult on this. I'll go ahead and clean this baby up. And here we go. You want to do this as quick as possible. Get these edges. Get any bulk away from the corners so it doesn't smoosh out. Doesn't need to be pretty. And now that I've said that, it probably does, but we're gonna, like I said, chaos meets reality, or I guess theory meets practice. Okay, so the edges are curling a little. We're gonna set that aside. That's fine. We're gonna wipe our hands with my rag that I don't know where I put. We're gonna set this bad boy down. Okay, so we don't want to do too much here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna set this down and we're gonna put a big old book on it. Big old book. So you can smooth this down if you like to make sure that everything is adhering. Just be, you know, careful. That's also why we didn't want a lot of the glue. We want enough to cover it and to adhere, but we don't want enough that it's going to be squishing out the edges and making a mess, things like that. So, and you can see I didn't quite get it up there. No one's gonna know if you trim. That whole no one's gonna know thing, it's true. No one's gonna know but you. You can leave it and probably no one will even notice then. And then the sides, like I said, you can trim with your scissors. You can trim with the rotary tool. You can do any of that, but what we're gonna do for now is we're gonna put our dropper back in here. And then I just washed this up with a little bit of soap and water and it was a-okay. No worries. So, but we want it to dry nice and flat. Crisp, crisp, crisp. The flattest of the flat, because when it's done, it's gonna go in this fancy little doodad. And see, I have plenty of room on these sides. So We could have trimmed this a little bit bigger and it would have been fine. However, better safe than sorry, so I'd rather that it's a little small in there than that it doesn't fit. All right, so we're gonna leave this here for a while, and then we're gonna see what kind of adjustments we need to make and see if it fits in our sleeve. So I am impatient and I am trimming right now. The rotary tool did not like these rounded edges, which is fine. Okay. And it barely survived. Ooh. You see how my fingerprints have smudged it a little? So this is a tester batch. I think I'm going to leave the logos off of my cardstock because I am not patient enough to let them dry overnight. And we're gonna go ahead trim that part down. We're gonna seal these edges one more time, put a book on it, and go from there. But this one we're gonna be extra careful because of the cardstock. Oops. Helps if I'm over in camera. That is definitely something I will be working on as I continue to make videos. I'm really bad at it on my lives on TikTok, but I will. Oop, 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 oop. We'll get there. Okay. Just a light dab, dab, dab. Now this should dry pretty dang clear or close to it. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry too much, but obviously try not to just glob it on there. And make sure you're not getting your cardstock. Okay. Over that edge. Okay. Now we're gonna put the book back on it. And we're gonna leave it alone until it is time to actually input it into the sleeve. I'm gonna try, but it shouldn't take too long. The first round seemed to dry pretty quickly. So we're gonna go clean up, and I will see you when it's time to put it in the sleeve. Okay, now that we have let it dry, or if you're like me, you said, hey, it's good enough, we're gonna take our sleeve. I did try to loosen the plastic a little bit with a hairdryer, give it a little more wiggle room, because these are trading card sleeves. So I want to be able to put this in here without doing a whole lot of shoving, if possible. So the sleeve is included, and you see where my smudges have done that. So that's a lesson learned. Just won't print. Okay. So won't print on the glitter side. And so try to make this as even as possible. I mean, those margins look pretty good, I think. Because this ends up being, what, basically just a hair under 4, and we cut the inside. There you are, your very first Hex Proof Stitchery trading card. I'm actually very excited about this because I wasn't sure if it was going to work. So the fact that I got it working on camera is pretty cool. So yes, you can take a hairdryer to kind of loosen up this, and now you can do whatever you want with it. You can hang it on the you can stick it to the wall, you can put it in a little easel, you can just stand it up on your desk, you can stick it somewhere else with other trading cards, and it will all be good. So thank you for joining us for the trading card finishing tutorial. We'll see you next time.